Thank you, Kayleigh. I know you said that President Trump was never briefed on these reports about the Russian bounties and whatnot, but can you say that he was briefed today?
Look, I'll say this, that the U.S. receives thousands of reports a day on intelligence, and they are subject to strict scrutiny. While the White House does not routinely comment on alleged intelligence or internal deliberations, the CIA director, NSA, National Security Advisor, and the Chief of Staff can all confirm that neither the president nor the vice president were briefed on the alleged Russian bounty intelligence.
But has he been briefed since all of these reports came out?
So let me back up and say this, that there is no consensus within the intelligence community on these allegations, and in effect there are dissenting opinions from some in the intelligence community with regards to the veracity of what's being reported, and the veracity of the underlying allegations continue to be evaluated.
And one more question, if I could. Is he upset that this intelligence was reportedly shared with the British government, but not him?
I have no further comment on that other than to just point you back to the two assertions that I made previously. The president has not hesitated to act, but this was not briefed up to the president because it was not, in fact, verified.
So I understand it has to be verified, but not everything in his daily briefings or in the presidential daily brief that's the written document is airtight. They let the president know about what they are hearing. That's why it's intelligence. So why would that not have been something that rose to that level if, we're sharing it with other countries?
The National Security Council and the intelligence community constantly evaluate intelligence reports, and they brief the president as necessary.
Does the president have a specific message for Moscow given these reports?
A specific message for Moscow? No, because he has not been briefed on the matter. As I noted, there's no consensus among the intelligence community, and there are, in fact, dissenting opinions.
This is White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany playing cleanup for Trump amid the bombshell news that Russia has placed bounties on the heads of U.S. soldiers, that Trump was reportedly briefed on it in March, and yet in all this time, never bothered to do a single thing to stop it. Now, McEnany is leaning on this idea that Trump wasn't briefed, that she can't speak on anything because apparently the President of the United States was never told that Russia was placing bounties on Americans' heads, which, to be clear, is complete and utter BS. But just for fun, let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume that he wasn't briefed. He was, but let's pretend that he wasn't. This story came out on Friday. It's been days. You can't just keep claiming you don't know about it. The entire world knows about this by now. Constantly saying you don't know doesn't make it disappear. Also, it might just help the White House to have a bit more time to brief the president if he didn't spend the weekend golfing 36 holes. This story about the Russians placing bounties on our soldiers' heads came out on Friday. Trump spent Saturday and Sunday on the golf course. 2 days seems like plenty of time to finally brief the president on what seems to be a pretty cut and dry story about a foreign power paying to have our soldiers slaughtered. And yet the White House instead took all of Friday, all of Saturday, all of Sunday, and all of Monday just to come out and say the president has not been briefed. Here's a briefing. Putin put a bounty on our soldiers' heads and Taliban militants collected on that bounty. There you go. That's the briefing. Keep in mind, you don't need to even have been briefed to have a comment on this story. I don't get a daily press brief, but I'm still able to look at Russia and say, with great ease, do not put bounties on Americans' heads, which is already more than Trump seems capable of doing. The guy didn't even deign to ask Putin to stop. I mean, that's a no-brainer. If you're the president of the United States and yet you can't even take the most basic step to protect our own troops, then what are you even doing? Because it sounds a whole lot like he's protecting Russia while leaving Americans out to dry. I also want to draw attention to Kayleigh's specific words here, that Trump wasn't briefed. Not that it wasn't included in his daily press brief, just that he wasn't briefed, which could mean simply enough that he didn't read his president's daily brief, his PDB, which by the way would make sense considering it's comprised of words and not pictures. But in all honesty, Kayleigh is just likely parsing words and leaning on semantics here to protect the White House, meaning that our service members are in danger and all the White House is concerned about is making sure that their verbiage doesn't incriminate them. Now, all of Kayleigh's missteps aside, consider this. Trump took to Twitter and said, quote, "Nobody briefed or told me, Pence, or Chief of Staff Mark Meadows about the so-called attacks on our troops in Afghanistan by Russians, as reported through an anonymous source by the fake news New York Times. Everybody is denying it, and there have not been many attacks on us." In other words, he's claiming that the story isn't credible. And yet at the same time, McEnany is claiming that Trump hasn't been briefed on it. So which one are we supposed to believe here? That the story is some fake New York Times hit piece that isn't true? Or that Trump hasn't even been told about any of it? Because so far, both of these have been disproven, but it'd at least be nice for the White House to get their story straight so that we know what lie we're going with today. But the truth is that we're not going to get a straight answer from the White House because their position is indefensible. And that's because we know that this story is true. It's been verified by a host of different news sources and countries. We know that Trump was briefed on it, and that's why the White House refuses to answer whether it was placed on the president's daily brief, his PDB, and we know that that means that Trump failed to act, knowing that bounties were placed on American soldiers' heads. He has grandstanded about the military and saluted cadets at West Point and hugged the flag, all while knowing that Americans were in danger and that instead of protecting them, he protected Vladimir Putin. So don't expect an honest answer from Trump or his mouthpieces, because the truth shows that he's a traitor. If you like that video, please check out my brand new podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I'll cover the most important political stories of the week and interview major players in the world of politics. Available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check it out and subscribe now.